What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us today for the very first episode of the Not Five Guys podcast, where five guys talk about sports. I'm your host, Suraj. So just a brief introduction about who we are. We're five USC grads that love watching sports, and we wanted to spread our thoughts and ideas out on a more public medium. Our episode today is going to be focused on the Super Bowl. We're going to look at how the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs got to this point, and we'll follow that up with a breakdown of the Super Bowl and what to look for. We're then going to go into some short, fun segments where we still talk about sports, but we do so in an interesting and creative way. And we'll close with a special tribute to an all-time NBA great that you're not going to want to miss. With that being said, we're just going to go around the horn and quickly introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Jerry. I like playing baseball. My favorite team are the New York Yankees, the New York Giants, the New York Knicks, and the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Wow, you grew
You
up
will
in
know
New York
why
or something?
if you look into this podcast more in the future.
What it do? My name is Kevin. I've been a lifelong Kobe fan, and I've recently hopped onto the Titans bandwagon, but I want to specify that it was right before they got good.
That's what they
What's
all
up?
say.
What's up? My name is Nikhil. I'm a huge soccer fan. My favorite team is Chelsea. I love basketball. I love trying out a ton of new sports. I've gotten into Formula One. I've gotten into tennis. I've gotten into golf a little bit. I've gotten into pool. I've gotten into long drive, all kinds of random stuff. My favorite Five Guys item, by the way, is a milkshake.
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for listening. My name's Phil. I grew up outside of Chicago, so really big into the Chicago sports teams, other than the Chicago Cubs, worst team ever. Also, I'm the resident gambling addict on this podcast, so if you've got any questions, hit me up, but don't come crying if you start losing money. It's not my
Please
fault.
hit up 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, guys, and like I said before, I'm your host, Suraj. A little bit about myself. Grew up in Houston, Texas, so I rep Houston harder than just about anybody not named Gerald Green. I'm a huge Astros fan, obviously. If you hear anything in the background, no, it's not a banging trash can. We did that back in 2017. We left it back then. I'm also a Rockets fan, and I also spent some time living in Louisiana, so that's where my Saints fandom comes from. So now that we've introduced ourselves, let's dive into our very first topic for today, how the two NFL conference champions got to the Super Bowl. Kevin, I know you spent some time analyzing the team, so why don't you give us a rundown of the 49ers this season?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the season, if I told any of you that the 49ers were going to be in the Super Bowl, I know that every single one of you would have put any amount of money up against that. The 49ers started the year with not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six. They won 8 in a row. And for the first few wins, like, everyone doubted them. They honestly did not think that they were legit. They claimed that it was easy wins. But then finally, when they finally went up against some good teams, people started to realize that they were actually legit. I think one thing that a lot of people didn't realize was that when Jimmy G came to the 49ers, he actually went 6-1 as a starter before he got injured. And so it was really back in 2017 that this 49er team came about. And last season, they were just plagued with injuries. And so this season, with so many great additions from the draft, having a new defensive back coordinator, and all their players returning from injury, that really helped them stay consistent this entire year. They also were able to have a more developed run game, which helped Jimmy G out a lot as well, so that the defense doesn't know what's coming at them. And that's how they got to the Super Bowl.
All right, now on the flip side, let's take a look at the AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs and their season. Jerry, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Starting from last season, they were in the playoff, and they went in pretty far in the playoff, even though they lost to the Patriots, because they don't really have a defense. And they still have one of the best offenses in the league, even this year. We all know they have probably the best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes. Their offense is just, they hit with fast speed offense, and no one can really stop them. But this season, they make it the Super Bowl, not because of their offense, but their defense. Starting with their defense, they changed their defensive coordinator, Steve, and previously he was a New York Giants defensive coordinator, he was pretty bad. The Giants finished last in defense, and I was very upset about that. But he decided to go to the Chiefs, and he completely changed that defense and make it pretty good. Some good personnel changes that they have on their defense is they released Eric Berry as their safety, and they signed Tyrann Mathieu, which probably all of you guys know from now because Tyrann Mathieu was a big. He had huge plays in the game against the Titans. They also replayed D4 with Frank Clark, which D4 surprisingly go to the 49ers this year. And this is how they completely changes their defense. And interesting fact, Chief actually allowed less points than the 49ers this season. So Chief actually had better defense than the 49ers if you think about it.
All right, so thanks for that, Jerry and Kevin. Now that we've gone through what these Super Bowl teams have done this season, let's look ahead to this weekend's game. This is a highly anticipated matchup between the Chiefs' offensive firepower led by Patrick Mahomes versus the 49ers' stingy defense led by rookie Nick Bosa. Phil, I know you have some interesting facts about Patrick Mahomes' historic postseason. Why don't you dive into those a little bit deeper?
Sure, Serge. So far this postseason, Patrick Mahomes has been incredible, and one could argue he's on pace to have the best quarterback season in the history of, or the best postseason quarterback play in the history of the NFL. If you look at some recent quarterbacks that have had great postseasons, you're looking at, surprisingly, Joe Flacco, 2013, had a passer rating of 117. Passer rating goes from 0 to 150-ish. Drew Brees in 2010 was at 117. And Nick Foles, famous coming off the bench for Carson Wentz in 2018, his passer rating was 115.7. In 2 games so far this postseason, Pat Mahomes, 131.5. He's thrown 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's led his team from multiple double-digit comebacks, and really he's been the key successor for this Chiefs offense. And if he keeps it up in the Super Bowl, his only competitor in history, I think, goes all the way back to Joe Montana in the 1989-90 postseason. Montana that year had an 11 touchdowns to 0 interceptions ratio. His adjusted yards per pass attempt were 12.3, which helps adjust your passing yards, accounting for touchdowns and interceptions, so it's not pure yards based. And that postseason, he had a 146.4 passer rating, which is just incredible. So I think Patrick Mahomes has a little bit to go. He's got to put up a great Super Bowl if he wants to match that postseason. But so far this year, he's looked amazing. So we'll see what he can do on Sunday.
I don't think that Pat Mahomes, just because he's been so good, is going to be the defining factor in this game. And the reason for that is this. Patrick Mahomes, by far, is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. And I don't think there are that many stats that back up the opposite. Garoppolo, about as many touchdowns, but 7 more picks, about double what Patrick Mahomes threw. And the bigger problem with Garoppolo is that not only does he have the 32nd most attempts per game, which means about 5th last in terms of full-time starting QBs, he's going for 36th most average intended air yards per attempt, which means the actual distance that he's trying to throw per throwing attempt is 31st in terms of full-time QBs. There are 32 teams in the NFL, just for everyone, which means he's second last. And he's basically just dumping it off to Deebo Samuel or to Kittle or to one of his running backs, Mostert, Coleman, or Breida, and letting them run rampant. The 49ers are the top team in terms of yards after catch. Deebo Samuel and George Kittle are number 2 and number 5 in yards after catch. And much more interestingly, according to Next Gen Stats, they're number 1 and number 2 in expected yards after catch, which is based on a combination of how open they are and how much speed they're going at, which means that they're getting hit in stride at they're pretty open when they get the ball, and they're able to just hit the hole and go. On top of that, these two have a lot of yards, but Emmanuel Sanders, on the other hand, is number 10 in the NFL in team air yard percentage, meaning he's 10th in the league in the percentage of yards thrown through the air to a specific receiver on a team. And what this means is that effectively, we haven't talked about Emmanuel Sanders all that much this year, but he's the one getting all the chunk yardage in terms of the passing plays. Samuel, Kittle, and the 3 running backs are just getting the ball and taking off. The interesting thing about the running back tandem that the Niners have is that they can beat you in so many different ways. You have Coleman, who sees the most defenders in the box, 8+ defenders in the box 40% of the time, which is kind of insane if you think about it, which means like the teams that are playing the Niners are selling out to stop Coleman. And on top of that, even though Coleman takes up that much of the defensive awareness, Mostert's right behind him at 9th, and Breida's back there at 11th. Breida and Mostert have both been hitting their top speed, where Breida has hit 15 miles an hour multiple times this season on carries, and Mostert's hit 15 yards, 15 miles per hour or more multiple times, and Breida has the highest speed on a single play of any player in the NFL this year. So the amount of time that you really have to deal with the Niners rushing trio is not much. And if you sell out to stop them, like the Kansas City Chiefs did, trying to let A.J. Brown beat them instead of Derrick Henry, they can just come around and beat you at the passing game.
I think that comes down to the offensive line of the 49ers. And so, yeah, Mostert and Breida especially are getting these open holes where they can hit those top speeds, because the Niners blocking, and more so the Niners offensive scheme, Kyle Shanahan runs a zone blocking scheme, and that has really allowed the running backs to thrive because they're hitting open holes. And like you said, they're able to get to 15 miles an hour before the line of scrimmage because there's no one touching them. They're going 10 yards before anyone touches them because Kittle's the best blocking tight end in the league.
Easily.
That plus a Niners offensive line that has really learned Kyle Shanahan's system over the past 3 years. These running backs are able to hit the hole and take off because there's no defenders waiting for them.
Phil, I know you mentioned this a little bit before when you talked about Shanahan, and Nick Hill, yeah, a lot of good numbers, a lot of good stuff that you had regarding the 49ers, and Phil, same with you about the Chiefs. But I think that the biggest thing that this game is going to come down to, in my opinion, is the coaching. We can all agree that back when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons and they blew that infamous 28-3 lead against the Patriots, that was partly due to his game, the way that he called the game in the second half. And he got a lot more conservative. He didn't throw the ball as much. And obviously, Andy Reid, he has his issues with not being able to manage the clock and not really understanding when and how to call timeouts. Phil, I know you love talking about Andy Reid's inability to call timeouts. So you can expand on that if you want. But just to go back to my point, I think the coaches are really going to need to call a good game because, honestly, they're two of the best coaches in the NFL. They've both got an immense amount of talent on both ends of the ball. But it'll just be interesting to see what they do, if they make any adjustments at halftime, and see how they basically call their game, see what their defenses are doing, what their offenses are doing, if there are any nerves that they need to account for. But that's definitely something to watch as well.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of really interesting ways that both Kyle Shanahan is calling the offense and the Kansas City defense is getting called, because especially if you see what they did last week or 2 weeks ago against the Titans, Derrick Henry was the story of the postseason, honestly. He was running over teams by himself, and the Chiefs come out, and honestly, it wasn't particularly extravagant what they did. They just stacked the box, but it was an understanding of what does the other team have that they can beat you with, and they weren't scared to deal with those A.J. Brown and Tajay Sharp and whoever else plays receiver for the Titans. On the opposite side, yeah, you have a great blocking tight end in Kittle, but Kittle's top 10 in receptions or catch percentage. He's fourth in catch percentage, actually. And you have to sell out to either stop the run or you deal with this, oh, am I going to take Kittle? Am I going to take a jet sweep from Samuel? Am I going to get blown through? I think that Kyle Shanahan's offense, the way that he calls it, is extremely interesting in the way that he puts receivers out before a run. And it's not like you're just having this whole, oh, all my guys are just going to stand on the line and block for my running back. It's, I'm going to start running out, draw some safeties out away from the line of scrimmage, and let my guy hit the hole. It's not like the Niners offensive line was that elite. They were 12th in sacks allowed, which is obviously not the greatest measure of an offensive line performance, but it does a reasonably good job of saying that they weren't the top offensive line in the country.
Yeah, I
the
agree.
league.
I think it's a lot of what Kyle Shanahan does on the offensive side to get his players into open space. And so, yeah, you mentioned that if you line up to stop the run, they're going to hit you on these other things. And that's where, especially what Kyle Shanahan loves to do, is he loves play action and he loves pre-snap motion. The Niners lead the league in use of pre-snap motion on 78% of their plays, whereas the league average is 47%. So you can see how much Kyle Shanahan loves it. The Chiefs are also in the top 5 of pre-snap motion, but they're closer to 55, 60%. And what that allows the Niners to do is when you have Deebo Samuel running through the backfield, or you're taking Mostert out of the backfield and splitting him out wide, it helps you see the defense because it helps you read if it's man coverage or zone coverage. But it also just makes the linebackers freeze. When that ball is snapped, if you've got someone running left while the running back's running forward, well, which way do you go? You don't know until you see where the ball's going. And by that point, that runner is already past you. And so that's one of the things that I love watching Kyle Shanahan's offense is he confuses the defense by having everyone moving at the same time.
And I think this is one of the reasons that explains so well some of the numbers that I brought up earlier, especially the ones around expected yards after catch, where all this motion is confusing players to the point where somebody on the offensive end is left open. And you're throwing into this wide open space where Deebo Samuel or George Kittle, for example, can just take it and go. Or there's a hole for Mostert to break through, or Coleman to break through, or Breida to break through. There's so many options on the offensive end. But the thing that I don't want to get into the talking about is how this is all the 49ers defense and the Kansas City offense. Because look at how much we've been talking about the 49ers offense itself. The offense of the 49ers has been doing, honestly, quite well the whole season. And the defenses are not actually that different in terms of especially passing touchdowns, in terms of passing yards. The big difference in the defenses and the place where we're really going to see this game change is I know that the Chiefs played a great game against the Titans last week, but the Chiefs are 26th worst at rush yards per game and 17th worst at rush TDs allowed. They're really not an elite run-stopping team. And so they're going to have to do a lot on the defensive end to figure out how to take away all the options that the Niners have to allow for them to have a better chance at winning this game. But on the flip side, the Chiefs' pass defense is actually one of the best in the league. There's only really Kendall Fuller, who's the 6th worst cornerback by defensive rating, who is the weak link. And Ward, Matthew, Sorensen, and Breland are all plus defenders. I am expecting to see the 49ers really try and attack that run defense to start the game out initially.
Yeah, I agree with Nikhil that it'll be interesting to see how much running the Niners are able to do on the Chiefs, given how much success they had last week, and see if the Chiefs can keep up their performance that they had against Derrick Henry, or if the Niners are averaging 9 yards a carry again, then this game's going to be over
4
fast.
TDs. Let's go,
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert.
But Patrick Mahomes, that's what I come back to. And even if you're getting 9 yards a carry, I think Patrick Mahomes will keep the Chiefs offense up with this Niners offense. And as long as Andy Reid doesn't blow a timeout in the first half and lose a chance scoring opportunity, as long as Pat Mahomes isn't on the ground 6 times because Nick Bosa's back there, I think it's going to be a great game on Sunday. So I'm not going to spoil it because we've got predictions later, but I think you guys know where I'm leaning on this game.
For me, the big thing is that the Niners are the best team against 20-plus yard plays, and the Chiefs really rely. They're the team that has 5th most 20-plus yard plays in the NFL. Let's see what happens, but I think I'm taking the Niners here.
All right. Well, we'll get into that later, so we don't want to talk too much about our predictions. But yeah, that was really, really good discussion that we had with regards to the Super Bowl. It is going to be a super exciting game, so we've got a lot to look forward on that front. We're now going to be switching gears to our short, fun segments for the week. Our first one is called Trivia Time, and this is where I'm going to ask a question. We're going to give everyone some time to think about the answer, and later on in the podcast, we'll revisit it. Our trivia question for this episode is, which NFL team is the first to play in 8 Super Bowls?
Ooh, all right. I think I got an answer. But
all right. And like I said before, we'll revisit this answer later on in the show. But moving on, we're now going to talk about You Heard It Here First. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Cool. So just wanted to give our listeners a little bit of background about this segment. When I was a freshman in college, I used to make tons of outrageous predictions in our group chat.
Oh yeah, I think I remember. I think it was the McDonald's All-American game freshman year. I was looking at the rosters, and Kevin just walks up to me and looks at a name, and he's like, "That guy's gonna be top 5 player in the NBA of all time." Do you remember who it was?
I think it's Tony Bradley Jr. It's like random guy on the Jazz team, right?
Yeah. Wait, he's on the Jazz now? He's still in the NBA?
I think so. Kevin,
Wow.
do you know who he is?
Just wait for it, man. His career's not over. He's going to be a Hall of Famer before you know it.
We'll see.
Most improved next year. But yeah, anyways, I made a lot of outrageous predictions early on in college, and going to sophomore year, some of those predictions started coming true. And so I started it as a joke, tagging on, "You heard it here first" at the end of every single one of my predictions. Some of the ones that ended up coming true were like predicting that Tiger would win the Masters a year before it actually happened, predicting that the Raptors were going to win the championship early on in the season. So yes, I thought it'd be fun to, ahead of this week's Super Bowl, to make a pretty outrageous, bold prediction that I think could potentially come true. I think that this weekend in the Super Bowl, both teams are going to combine for 1,000 points. No, sorry. Sorry.
Wow. 500 to 500.
I predict that both teams will combine for 1,000 total offensive yards, but only 2 touchdowns will be scored the entire game.
Whoa.
Jeez.
Turnover Central or
Tough
something.
prediction.
No, we're going to get a lot of
Yeah.
field goals. A lot of
Lots
field
of
goals.
field goals. Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing Robbie Gould versus Harrison Butker.
All right. That's our first ever You Heard It Here First, brought to you by Kevin. That was bold, I'll tell you that. But our next short segment is called Guess the Number. Phil, I'll let you take it from here and explain what this is all about.
Thanks, Serge. So a little bit more about how Guess the Number works is I've looked up a couple prop bets for the Super Bowl this weekend, and I like to be educated when I make a bet. So before I make these bets, I want to get everybody else's opinion. But to make it a little bit more fun, nobody else on this podcast knows the exact numbers for these prop bets. They're just going to have to tell me what they think for a player's yards or receptions or touchdowns. And they're just going to have to give me a number. And based on where their numbers are at, I'll reveal what the current line is in Las Vegas and have to make a decision on which way I'm going to bet. So to start us off, one of the most interesting players of the weekend is Jimmy Garoppolo. And so I want to know how many passing yards each of you think he's going to throw for this weekend.
So I have to do some research on Jimmy G this year. He's averaging 248.6 yards per game. And his highest yardage come against the Saints when they score like 48 points, where he has 349 yards. But I don't think that's really realistic. And because if you look at the both playoff game, he's averaging less than 140 yards. So my guess is slightly under the average of 248, so I'm going with 225 yards per game this game.
All right.
Some of the research I've done over this past week, seeing that Jimmy G surprisingly doesn't throw that much. As I said, 32nd most in the NFL in attempts per game, 36th in air yards per target. He's really not throwing that much, and these people are doing a lot. But let's see what the Chiefs did against the Titans last week, where they really pushed to sell out for the run. I think that there's going to be something similar going on, and Jimmy G is going to end up throwing more than he wants to. Maybe the 49ers want to. And I'm going to go a little over the 245. I'm going to go for 260.
All right.
I'm just going to throw it out there. I think Jimmy G is going for 400 yards this week.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh.
Gotta keep with that bold prediction.
yeah.
If he's getting 500, if the team's getting 500.
400 is not even his career high. I'm not even his career high. It's not even his season high this year. So I think it's doable, and it's the biggest stage, Super Bowl. So he's gonna do it there.
All right, I'm going to go for Jimmy G. I'm going to give him 280. I think that in order for the 49ers to win this game, they're going to need a balanced attack. They're going to be far more pass heavy than what we saw against Green Bay, and I think that he's going to make some deep throws. He's going to throw some little curls and some short little routes for his running backs to get a bunch of yards, and in total he's going to get to 280.
All right. All y'all were dancing around the number, other than Kevin, of course, but reasonably. Currently in Las Vegas, the prevailing number is around 239.5 passing yards.
I was pretty
And-
close. I was
Yeah,
pretty close.
Yeah.
You know.
3 of you were on the over, and I'm going to have to agree with you. I think after last week, Kyle Shanahan's not just going to – everyone thinks he's – like, the run game was good, but I think he's going to come out throwing. He's going to get Jimmy G involved, take a couple shots, and I think Jimmy's going over 239.5.
Trust my feelings, man. 225 under sometimes.
We'll
All right,
see.
Jerry,
We'll see,
let's
Jerry.
I think it was 1v3 in this case, so.
Yeah, let's see where you stand on the next one. So standing next to Garoppolo for most of the game is going to be Raheem Mostert. So where do you guys think he lands in terms of rushing yards?
Tevin Coleman, who was injured last game, but he said he's okay this game. I don't know about okay. When Raheem Mostert is average around 50 yards when Coleman is playing, but I think since Coleman is actually not maybe playing, maybe not playing, my guy will be around 80 yards. Not a lot, but 80 yards.
So going along with the theme of 1,000 total offensive yards with both teams.
Here we go.
We saw he went for his career high 2 weeks ago with 220 rushing yards. I think he's going to match that this week.
Ooh.
Damn,
Wow.
600
I've
yards
been
from
going
the
bold.
49ers this week.
There you
Wow,
go.
that's a
Alright.
lot.
I am going to come in with some amount of reason here and say that he is not going to go for 220 again. Maybe that's not reasonable, actually. Let's see. But the things I've been saying this whole podcast, I've been saying that I think that the 49ers have been running a bunch. I think the Chiefs have been coming out and they've been like, we're going to stop the run and you guys can beat us in the pass game. I think the same thing is going to happen. They're going to stack 8 in the box. Mostert, Breida, and Coleman, all 35+% of the time, see 8+ defenders in the box. I think he's not going for that much. I'm going to take 65.
Ooh, a little low there. Let's see. Serge?
All right, and I've got him at 85 yards, pretty close to what Jerry said. So I think he's going to have a good game for sure, but in order for the 49ers to win this ball game, they're going to need a balanced attack, and they're going to need Jimmy G to throw the ball, so don't look for this number to be as high as we saw last week.
Wow, you guys are you sure you guys didn't look up these numbers? His total is at 80.5 right now. So Jerry and Serge hit that right on the number.
I'm good, Phil. I don't know what to tell you.
Hey,
I
Jerry's
was
better
feeling
than
it.
Fairly
man.
low, but maybe I'm just a hater.
No, I'm with you though, Nick. I think based on what you guys have said, I'm on the under, especially if we're taking Jimmy G to go over his passing yards. We're looking at a team that if they're gonna win this game, I think they do need to get more passing involved. And yeah, if the Chiefs are stacking the box, that means they're not getting a lot of rushing yards. And if Coleman is healthy, like Jerry said, that's even more reason for Mostert to get less yards. So I'm on the under here. On the other side of the ball, we've talked a lot about the Niners offense. Let's go ahead and look at the Chiefs offense and look at one of the keys to their offense in Travis Kelce. How many receptions is he going to get this Sunday?
So I also did some research on Travis Kelce this season. During
Cherry,
the
I think you did
regulars-
research on everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cherry.
I love doing
Cherry-
research. I want to
Cherry
make
was
sure
doing
all
a
my
lot of
prediction
research.
is, not just based on my feelings, but also based on real stats.
That's
During
good.
regular season, he was average 4.1 reception, and for the past 2 games, the 49 had only allowed 2 reception and 4 reception respectively in games. So I think Travis Kelce will probably get around 5 reception. I don't think he will get that many reception because I think Patrick Mahomes has more weapon in his wide receiver core. So I think 5 is my answer.
So I am actually going to go against you there. This is the number 5 yards per game offense in which Kelsey gets the most receptions out of anyone. He's 7th in receptions overall in the entire league, 10th in targets overall. I think that when the whole thing falls down and Bosa, Armstead, Buckner, D Ford, and even Solomon Thomas, shout out to Solomon Thomas, are coming after him, he's going to be looking to his tried and true option. I'm going for 8 receptions.
All right.
Yeah, that's pretty close to what I got actually. I have Kelsey sitting at 10. Obviously, he's reliable. He's in a pass-heavy offense, and in my opinion, he's the best tight end in the NFL. So look for him to be involved early and often. He's a reliable option for Mahomes to hit early on in the game. They're going to be nerves, so I think he's going to get that number pretty high, up to 10.
He might drop some passes, so you might want to lower that number.
Ooh.
All right, not gonna lie. I misheard the prediction earlier, and I thought it was reception yards. So my number was gonna be ridiculous. He was gonna have 200 receptions, which is way
200
off.
receptions, let's
I'm
go.
gonna go with something. Probably my most reasonable prediction of the night. I gotta go with 10 receptions for Travis Kelce.
10, and you're still tied for the highest though. So, on that note, you guys are liking Travis Kelce. Las Vegas has him sitting at 6.5.
See,
So-
5 is the closest.
Yes, but Jerry, once
Wait,
again,
no,
you're on the
I
wrong
had
side
8.
as everybody else.
You're 1.5 off. I'm 1.5 off.
Yeah, and you're on the wrong side again, Jerry. I'm gonna have to side with the majority. I like what you guys are saying. Pat Mahomes is gonna, when that pressure hits, he's gonna look to Travis Kelce. It's gonna be an easier throw than trying to throw 40 yards downfield when you've got Nick Bosa on your tail. So I'm gonna go with the over 6.5 receptions for Kelce.
Fun fact there, Tyreek Hill, top 25 in targeted air yards, meaning that Mahomes really loves to air it out when he throws to Tyreek.
Well, yeah, when he's that fast, why not?
True.
Hey, Sherman can guard man defense, so he might throw it more.
Sherman is not quick enough to deal with that. They're putting Tart on him or someone.
All right, let's not talk about Richard Sherman now. Let's not insult the man. Go. All right. Well, thanks for leading that, Phil. That was a really fun little segment, and of course, you are our gambling expert. So
Don't rely on my opinions, people.
1-800-GAMBLER.
I wanted to say expert, not addict, because it sounds a lot better. But I mean, we'll go with whatever you want to call yourself here. All right, we've had a little bit of time now, so I think it's a good opportunity to revisit our trivia question. So why don't we go around the horn again real quick and put out who everyone thinks that they had for this question.
My guess is the Patriots, because, I mean, they've been in the Super Bowl a lot, so I
Okay.
think it's the Patriots.
Okay.
I've got to go with the Patriots as well. Like, haven't they made it like 8 straight years or something?
The
8 straight
recency
years?
bias.
No, they haven't.
Come on. This isn't LeBron.
Not 1, not 2, not 3.
Nah, you guys are too focused on recent history. I'm going with the team that made it this year, the San Francisco 49ers.
And I am going to go with the homer pick of the Steelers here
Uh,
because I know we've made 7, so there hopefully is 1 in there somewhere.
Well, unfortunately, no one really had the right answer.
Of course.
Nick Hill, I'm really disappointed in you, dude. You don't even know how many Super Bowls your team has appeared in.
I said 7. I was just hoping there was 1 somewhere there.
So the answer is the Dallas Cowboys. They appeared in their 8th Super Bowl in 1995.
Damn.
Now the Steelers appeared in their 8th Super Bowl in 2010.
oh.
And the Patriots appeared in their 8th Super Bowl in 2014. So the Patriots was not actually a bad guess.
Wait,
All
what?
right.
And the Steelers was?
Yes. He's going to hate on you.
I'm going to hate on you.
Oh,
I'm gonna
come
hate on you.
on.
I gotta do
My
it. I'm
team
sorry.
they made the 8th Super Bowl before the Patriots. All right, you know what? Let's just move on.
I'm gonna hate on everyone on the Steelers except for Juju. Shout out Juju, USC grad, fight on forever.
Why don't you want to shout out Xavier Howard?
I don't think anybody knows who that is. Xavier,
Xavier
please.
Grimble, my
I
bad.
hope-
Xavier Grimble, USC grad.
I don't think anyone knows who that is either. I hope he's not listening. But in case he is,
I doubt
thanks
he's
for the
listening.
listen. We appreciate that. But so lastly, we're gonna hop into our weekly segment where we make 3 predictions related to sporting events going on that week. So we're gonna be keeping a running tally of how we do in these predictions, and at the end of each month, whoever is in last place, they'll have to go some sort of punishment, which we'll be able to put on our Instagram, on our Twitter. So real quick plug, follow us on Twitter at Not5Guys. Same thing on Instagram at Not5Guys. And we'll be posting on that. And obviously we will put our punishment video on that as well. So the first prediction question that we have is, who do you have winning the Super Bowl? Let's go around real quick and give our answers.
I'm guessing the 49ers.
I got to go with the Chiefs.
I'm with Kevin. I got the Chiefs.
Before I say anything, I didn't forget about you, Zach Banner. Shout out Zach Banner, also member of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
God damn, Zach Banner.
Ex USC, member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're still my guy. But I am taking the Niners, and I feel like that's been very apparent this whole time.
And I've got the Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes is too hard to stop. This is the year Andy Reid gets his Super Bowl, and I'm excited to see what goes on with the Chiefs once they start celebrating. You never know what Travis Kelce's going to do in that celebration.
He won't. He will be crying.
Oh, wow.
Ooh.
All right,
Yeah.
all right.
He'll be so
That's,
sad. He
that's-
can't even
that's
win the
bold
Super Bowl
there.
this year.
That's a bold prediction.
That's bold. All right, so our next prediction is we have the total net yards by both teams over under 777.5.
I'm feeling it under.
You already know for me, 1,000 all the way over.
1,000 yards. I am going to take the under here because I think that the defenses are actually going to show up. The passing defense for the Chiefs, maybe the rushing defense. Let's see. And both sides of the defense for the Niners.
I'm on the over here. I think these offenses are just too strong. The play callers are going to they've had 2 weeks to design a game plan. They're going to come out pretty creative, and I'm actually with Kevin, and I think we see 1,000 yards this weekend.
Ooh.
Wow.
And 2 touchdowns only, right?
There you
Nah,
go.
I got like 15 touchdowns.
15. Holy. Okay, that's a bold prediction. We have only bold predictions on this show.
There you go. All right, and I've got the over as well. I think it's going to be an offensive showdown. Look for an offensive slugfest. Teams are going to go off and force the coaches to make some big adjustments at halftime so we don't have a ridiculously out of control Madden-like Super Bowl.
We will, though.
Yeah, that's always fun to watch, especially after last year, you know.
Oh, yeah. We're just making up for it this year.
Exactly. All right, let's go to our final prediction. So it's a fun prop bet. It is the first half points in the Super Bowl -4.5 versus Zion Williamson's total points scored against the Houston Rockets this weekend.
I'm taking the first half point of the Super Bowl -4.5.
I got to go with Zion. It's Sunday. It's prime time. He's going off.
I'm going with Zion just because I want to go with Zion. Shout out Zion.
There you go.
Nah, Zion's still on a minutes restriction, so I got to go first half points. I think we're going to hit 30 in the first half this week. And in 20 minutes that Zion's playing, I don't think he gets over 20 points.
I agree with you on that, Phil. I think that's going to be an offensive slugfest, so a lot of points scored. And Zion Williamson, he's got the minutes restriction. I don't think he's going to have much room to operate in the paint when you've got Clint Capella manning it. And if he makes his threes, he's going to get over. If not, I think he's going to be under this. I think he's going to miss his threes, and I'm going to go with the first half points in the Super Bowl. All right, so with that, we have reached the end of our show. But before we wrap up our episode today, I want to close with some of my thoughts about what transpired this past weekend. This is something far bigger than sports. As many of you know, Kobe Bryant and 8 others tragically passed away in a helicopter accident on Sunday morning. Kobe Bryant was an incredible basketball player. He had 5 championships, an MVP, 2 finals MVP, 9-time first team all defense, and of course he dropped 60 and arguably the most memorable final NBA game for any NBA player. Everything that there was to accomplish in basketball, he accomplished. But Kobe transcended basketball. He inspired multiple generations not to necessarily be great basketball players, but to be great at whatever their passion was. He constantly stressed the importance of hard work, dedication, and a relentless competitive spirit. He was as close to being a superhero as anybody else in sports. It's why when Ice Cube was asked about what he did when he heard the news, he said he texted Kobe and he waited to see if he'd get a text back. And it's why Lamar Odom said, if there was anybody to survive a helicopter crash, it would be Kobe. Nobody wanted to even accept that this was real. But aside from being this inspirational basketball player, superhero type figure, we recently got to see what Kobe's true passion was, and that was being a father. He loved his family, particularly his daughters. And while a lot of players struggled with life post-basketball, so many people have talked about how this chapter of Kobe's life was his best. He was actually at his happiest. You could see this every single time he talked about his daughter Gigi. He'd say things like, she's so much better than I was at her age. And wait till you see her play. She's a beast, a monster. And of course, the story of her telling people that Kobe didn't need a son to carry on his legacy, she got it. It was on her. There really isn't anything that could come close to making us feel better about the situation. But I think we can all agree that in those final moments together on that helicopter, Kobe did everything in his power to comfort his daughter, even though he knew the end was near. As ESPN's Elle Duncan summed it up best, Kobe died doing what he loved the most, and that was being a dad. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Bryant family, his daughters, wife Vanessa, and all other families involved during this extremely tough time. We will do our best to carry on Kobe's legacy as best as we can and carry that Mamba mentality in everything that we do. Thanks for tuning in to the very first episode of the Not Five Guys podcast. That concludes everything that we have for this episode. Please feel free to comment below. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, anything you want us to add. We appreciate all feedback that you have. But with that, we'd like to once again thank you so much for listening, and we'll hope to catch you on our next episode of the Not Five Guys podcast.